This 20th century disease is a controversial subject among most doctors and the subject of many books, such as this one, The Yeast Connection. Simply, candidiasis is a yeast imbalance in our system, believed to be responsible for many illnesses, from allergies to blood poisoning. Joining us this morning is Dr. Carolyn Dean, one of the few doctors in Toronto that treats candidiasis patients. And I'd like to thank you for stopping by this morning.
Thank you.
I say it's a yeast imbalance. Perhaps you can tell us exactly what candidiasis is and how a person gets candidiasis.
Yes, candidiasis is long form for candida. It's a yeast that grows in everybody's gastrointestinal tract. And I guess the question is how much. When there's a small amount, no problem. When there's an overgrowth, then the problems are created either by the weight of the yeast itself in the body or the toxins or products that the yeast forms. And that can cause vaginal discharges, bowel problems. The toxins can circulate and cause allergy manifestations, headaches, cerebral effects, emotional problems, anxieties, can cause, as I said, gastrointestinal problems, constipation, diarrhea, joint problems. The toxins supposedly lie in the joints and can cause pain. So it can mimic and manifest many different diseases, and it makes it very hard to diagnose. It seems to come when the body is allowed to overgrow the yeast with use of antibiotics. When you take an antibiotic, you kill off good and bad bacteria. This allows non-bacterial forms to overgrow, such as yeast. So antibiotics, birth control pill can create yeast overgrowth because hormones encourage yeast growth. Women before their menstrual period or during pregnancy will get more yeast. So all these things can cause an overgrowth. In our society, we're living at a time, a very sped up time, where in the past 20 to 30 years, our generation, have been growing up on antibiotics, on birth control pill, on a very high sugar refined diet, and these all encourage yeast growth. So I think people have to be aware of these things. It's in modern medicine or conventional medicine, they aren't really looking at that. We depend in medicine on studies that take 10 to 15 years to prove whether or not a syndrome exists and to prove whether or not we can treat it. But I don't think we have another generation to wait.
Is it because of this long period in time required to study something that most doctors are opposing the idea that candidiasis exists? Is it because it's hard to diagnose and because of this long term that we're expecting? Why do doctors oppose it?
Well, I think the index suspicion has to be there. Doctors try to be very careful, and they don't want to jump into anything unnecessarily. So they would, your immediate reaction as a doctor is to say, no, let's wait. Let's wait and see if we can prove it. Because in medical school, we learned that candidiasis as an overwhelming infection only occurs at the end stage of a very long immunosuppressed illness. And even in American journals, there was an editorial that said, well, it only occurs in people who have immune-compromised systems, who have had long-term antibiotics, who've had birth control pill, who've had diabetes, etc. And to my mind, that's about half of our population. So we really have to get on the bandwagon, I think, for the public's sake about this, because when you go to a doctor and you have a list of symptoms that look like arthritis, you're going to be treated for arthritis.
Instead, it could be candidiasis.
It could be, but then you have to work your information from all levels. There's a lot of alternative information available, but you can't exclude anything. The public have to be informed health consumers, because there may be 8 or 10 different modalities. If you go to a doctor that gives antibiotics, you get antibiotics. If you go to one that gives you some sort of natural supplementation, that's what you'll get. So you have to know what you're getting when you go to a doctor.
We're almost out of time here. One last question I have for you, and that's regards to OHIP. Candidiasis and treatment of it is not covered under OHIP. What kind of advice would you have for families that are, low-income families if they think that they might have candidiasis?
Right. Well, the books, I guess that's why the books are put out, because not a lot of doctors have the time to sit down and educate the public. The Yeast Connection is very important, and the Yeast Syndrome is another book. A person in reading that can well, I wouldn't say diagnose themselves, but they can see some interaction and go on a diet, do some simple things for themselves, and really help themselves a great deal.
Okay, if you'd like more information, we do have a number available. It's 832-3495. That number again, 832-3495, if you'd like more information on candidiasis. I'd like to thank you for stopping by this morning.
Thank you.
Our guest has been Dr. Carolyn Dean. We'll be back right after this.